Okay. Alrighty. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Looks like Kaylee's Corral's here. Hello. Rebecca. Hi. Steven. Got snacks and a drink and you're ready. I love it. That's awesome. I'm so excited you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining me. Sweet. Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Glad it sounds good. I know there's a little bit of a delay probably. So yeah, so just curious, where are you guys all from? If you don't mind just typing like what time zone you're in or what state you're in. I tried to kind of pick a time. Kaylee's Corral. It's so crazy how your channel grew so quickly. Thank you. Yes, I'm surprised too. I'm kind of came to YouTube from Instagram and was hoping maybe some of my audience would come over, but I think it's kind of YouTube's its own thing. It's its own audience, and so it's really fascinating. Wisconsin, Northwest Montana. Hi Larry. Hi Andy. Hello, hello from the Netherlands. Hello. Welcome. 3 p.m. here. Okay, cool. Great production value. Thank you, Matthew. Tulsa. Okay, cool. I actually flew into Tulsa to buy Fame. Fame was being trained in Oklahoma. I was there in January and I have never experienced cold like that before. It was so cold. Of course, I'm a little bit of a spoiled California girl. We don't get extreme weather. Bay Area. Okay. Move out of state by summer, fall. Yeah, a lot of folks are leaving California. It's like a mass exodus. Ogden, Utah. Very cool. Montana. Stacia, thank you so much. I'm glad you've been enjoying the videos. Central Pennsylvania, very cool. My mother is from Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. She was born in Kentucky and then they lived in Pittsburgh area for a long time. San Diego, oh, you guys got the nice weather. Indiana, California, awesome. Well, I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you so much. This is amazing. This is my first time doing live, so I apologize if there's any glitches. I'm still figuring out the platform and stuff, but I thought we would take some time to just kind of answer whatever questions you had. I know when Scotland, California, fame is an Okie, yes. Hello from San Diego. Hi guys. Um, okay, cool. Yeah, if the lives end up being something you guys enjoy, I like doing it and I'm trying to figure out a time that works with my work schedule and still me being able to ride and get out, when the weather's good. So yeah, but we can definitely make this a thing. So I wanted to get to your guys' questions. And just kind of share whatever was of interest to you. So if you want to start popping in some questions in the chat, I'll start off just by sharing a little bit about Fame's trail training journey because I know when I posted about the live chat or the live stream, there were some questions about kind of how did you get your horse trained for trail. So Fame started getting trained for trail in the summer of 2019. It was an interesting situation where the boarding facility we were at was shutting down. And so I was in the process of finding a place for us to move to. And I went through a long process of interviewing trainers. And I'd actually like to do a video on this because I feel like there's kind of a lot to process when you're shopping for a trainer for your horse. And it took me a while to find someone that I felt like was a good fit. So I was kind of shopping here and there for a few months and found a gentleman not too far from us, thankfully, so that I could be part of the process because that was really important to me. I know it's very common with horses for people to send their horse off for training because maybe the trainer that they like is farther away. So, that's very common, very valid. I knew for myself because of the history we had had where I had fallen off of him and I needed to kind of grow my skills and sort of move from that place of being afraid to ride my horse that I wanted to be part of the process and I wanted to find someone that was open to, me watching the training when I could and to take lessons from that person as well. A lot of horse trainers also will do riding lessons. In fact, I think you can find a horse trainer that will do that for you. That's a great thing to get under your belt because they can kind of show you how they're training your horse and help you cue your horse in the same way. So he started getting trained in July of 2019, and for various reasons, the process took a a little bit longer than I had thought, just simply because my trainer had some personal things come up that delayed the training partially. But also, I think this is something for those of you that are looking to purchase a horse or have your horse trained, is that kind of like construction or building a home, it takes longer and it costs more than you think it's going to. And I think by the time we actually hit the trail for the first time, it was February of 2020 of last year. So in total, it was about 6 months, I would say 5 or 6 months of full-time training. And he was getting trained 4 days a week. That was pretty standard around here. People do 4 or 5 days a week. And we started off actually going out in groups with other very calm horses and very experienced riders. And this is another thing that I would encourage you, if you are looking to get your horse trained. One of the challenges that I came across is that because of insurance reasons, not every horse trainer will take you and your horse out on trail. In fact, that was really quite challenging to find. And it comes down to liability. A lot of times the liability policy for them as horse trainers to work on a particular property is much more reasonable. And if they want to start leaving the property and going places, that it requires much more extensive insurance for them. And a lot of trainers don't find that their business works that way to make that worthwhile for them. So that's something to look into in advance, again, if you're looking to purchase a horse and have it trained, or if you are looking to get your horse trained right now. So what we ended up doing was Fame got his training on property, and then we went out with, like I said, groups of people that were experienced, whose horses were very calm and had been there, done that. And the first rides that we did were close by. So it was a short trailer ride. We only maybe did a loop of about 45 minutes, and it was flat. It was easy terrain. It was preschool, basically. It was super easy for him. And then from there, we just kind of tried slightly more challenging rides in terms of terrain, or slightly longer, but always going out in groups. And then about in April of last year, that was when I actually started taking him out by myself. And so I started hiking with my husband, because I didn't feel comfortable just completely going alone from having ridden with other horses, because horses will get they'll get a lot of confidence from other confident horses. So we went with my husband, and my husband kind of actually ended up being kind of like the lead horse. And Fame it's super cute. The footage I have would fall in right behind him and actually end up kicking dirt into his boots. And then from there, after doing that several times, then we actually tried to go out by ourselves for the first time on the same trails. So everything was familiar, and I could reduce the variables basically that we were dealing with. And that's kind of how we got going. And then from there, I just tried to be really consistent about getting him out a lot so that he could get that practice. We rode with friends, we rode by ourselves, we hiked with my husband, and that kind of was how we got started. I'm gonna check the chat real quick here. Stacia, I'm glad I said your name correctly. I had a sister named Stacy, so I'm very familiar with that. Kaylee's Corral, was Fame your dream horse? Yes, Fame was my dream horse. I specifically wanted a drum. Um, I love the look of gypsy vanners, but I wanted something bigger. Most gypsies here are maximum 14 hands-ish, and I love the idea of a tall horse. I'm a tall person, I'm 5'9", so can't imagine sending my horse away for training, Tara. Yeah, I understand the need, but I think it's very admirable that you wanna be part of the process. Thank you. Yeah, I certainly don't judge anyone for doing that. I know that's very common, and at one point too, I was actually looking at different types of training methodologies, and I was talking to a woman, I wanna say in Idaho, who did clicker training. She did positive reinforcement stuff, so she was an option at one point. But it really came down to, like, I wanted to be there, I wanted to watch the evolution and learn. Matthew Allen, how do you trailer halfway across the country? How often do you stop, and does the horse sleep in the trailer? That is a great question. So, if you are purchasing a horse from out of state or from far away from you, chances are, if you don't know how to trailer yourself, or if the seller isn't offering to do it for a fee, you will pay a company to do it for you. And so in my case, the seller that I purchased from, she had worked with a particular company and had a good relationship with them. And that I think is key is you wanna find a transport company that has a good reputation, because, they're dealing with your precious animal. And he was driven in a semi truck that was outfitted for horses, and you pay for different size stalls, the company that I used. You could get a stall size, a stall and a half, or a double, and I paid for a stall and a half for him because he's a big guy, and so they get a little more extra room. And the way these guys did it is that there were 2 guys in this semi, and they took turns, and someone slept and someone drove, and someone slept and someone drove. And they went straight from Oklahoma to, California, and they had several stops to make, and I think they started north or started south and came north, one or the other. So when Fame arrived, it was 2 or 3 in the morning, and they told me, they said, "We'll be there probably about 2, keep your phone on you." So I didn't sleep at all, really. Got the phone call, drove straight out to the ranch and opened the gate and let them in, and this huge semi rolls in. And so that was how they did it. The horse, I don't know if Fame slept in the trailer. I would imagine he had to, but it's a stressful drive. And a lot of times horses will lose a little bit of weight because of the stress. They're not eating like normal because they're in this strange environment. So he did have a little bit of weight to put on when he got to where I was. But yeah, that's one thing to do some research on too as you're horse purchasing is a good solid transport company and to factor into your budget because it was ah, it was over $1,000 for sure, and I'm probably grossly underestimating it, but this was 6 years ago, and I'm sure it's gone up quite a bit. Rebecca, one thing I'm so concerned about is that I currently have a very professional and knowledgeable instructor who also trains horses, but by the time we buy our first horse, we'll be out of state. Yeah, that sucks. Um, I mean, I think at that point, it kind of comes down to who do you really trust? And I do find there's a lot of variety in the horse training world. And so finding someone that you really rely on and feel comfortable with is huge. And so if you get to the new place you're moving to, and you can find someone that you feel that same way about, then awesome. But yeah, it does come down to kind of weighing who do you trust versus how much do you want to be part of the process. And I know the woman who bred Fame, Fame was actually born in Texas, and she sent him to the trainer in Oklahoma because she knew her so much and trusted her so much. So, um, does my husband ride? I have put him on some of those nose to tail public rides wherever we can find one that has draft crosses or draft horses because he's a big guy. He's a personal trainer and he's all buffed out. And so the weight limit is kind of borderline for him depending on the facility. So we always try to find places that will accommodate a larger rider. And he likes it. I think for him, he always is like, "Do I get a motorcycle? Do I get a horse?" He's like, "The motorcycle doesn't have moods." And so I think he's not sure if he would wanna take on the responsibility of another horse. So I said, "I'll get the second horse, and then you can ride him sometimes." What is 5'9" in centimeters? That's a good question. That's a Google question. I need to get better at my metric system. I don't know why the US is on what we're on. Bridget Mills, any lessons learned from overnight camping with Fame? Did you sleep in your trailer, primitive camping versus campground? Great question. And we're actually planning on going camping here very soon. I would say there's a lot to be prepared for. If you're thinking about going camping with your horse, the way I did it is that I went with a group my first time. I went with someone else, and I think that's huge. Like you don't want to try and do this without some other people with you, especially other horses, because chances are, I think most horses probably wouldn't take to overnight camping alone quite so readily. It would be probably incredibly stressful for them. Fame, I went with a really good girlfriend of mine, and her horse and Fame are buddies, and we trail ride. And so that was key for us. And we also tried to keep the variables as limited as possible. So we camped at a place that was close by and that had permanent corral panels, so we didn't have to worry about highlining. If for some reason the horses freaked out or wouldn't eat or drink, we could drive back home. And Yeah, and so that was a great way, I think, to get started. I tent camp, so I bring a tent that I love. It's called a gazelle tent, and you literally pop it up in, like, 60 seconds. And the next video I'm planning to put together, I'm actually gonna talk about all the stuff that I bring camping, and that's one of the items that I'm in love with, because the traditional tents, you've gotta put the little stakes together, and it takes you, like, 3 hours, and by the time you're done, you're like, "Ugh." This one, you just pop open. So, keeping your gear as easy and seamless for you as possible is really helpful because your focus is gonna be on getting your horse comfortable. You're gonna forget to take care of yourself. So, keeping the stuff for yourself, like, I freeze meals in advance and we just reheat them, so I'm not doing a whole lot of cooking. And then the places that I've all done so far have all been designated horse campgrounds. There are some places near us where you can, like, pack in, and eventually we'll probably try something like that, but I just find it's easier to just be able to pull your rig straight up to the site. And, uh, and yeah, I'm trying to think any other big lessons. Um, I'm sure I will think of some, and I'll put it into a video for sure. And if I think of something as we're talking, I'll come back to that. Thank you, Andy. Okay, 175 centimeters. Rebecca, do you think it's foolish for first-time horse buyer to buy out of state or to buy a horse you're unable to physically see in person? This is a great question. I foolish to buy out of state. I think it might be necessary, depending on what you're looking for and where you're at. I do think it's important to be able to see the horse in person, because there's so much that goes into buying a horse that I personally would not feel comfortable making that kind of investment and that kind of commitment without having actually met and tried the horse. So, so that does mean, most likely that your budget would have to get bigger. And that's kind of something that I had to really plan for with Fame is that when I started shopping for drum horses at the time, there were, I wanna say, like, 3 of them in the country. And so it was like, "Well, am I flying to Wisconsin or Oklahoma?" Or I forget where the other place was. And so that was factored into my budget. Um, and I did go out and I actually spent the night. So when I went to go purchase Fame, I planned to be there for it was either 2 or 3 days because I wanted to ride him, on the property and off trail. She was okay with that. We kind of, she had like 10 acres, so we kind of went out into the boonies near her property. And I also wanted to be present for the vet check. So if I ended up deciding that I liked him, I made plans with a vet in advance and had that vet scheduled for the following day, and I wanted to be there to talk to him. And also too, I wanted to interact with him more than once. There's some risks with, purchasing a horse in general, and, sometimes people will dope horses and that kinda stuff. So I felt like at least if I'm there multiple days in a row, not only do I get a chance to kind of see the seller in action and get a feel for them, but I can see the horse more than just one time. So yeah, and I'm gonna be filming a do's and don'ts video maybe later today. The weather's nice, probably tomorrow that I'm gonna put out Friday or Saturday. So look for that because that'll kind of go into some of this more too. But yeah, I mean it's not foolish. It's all about what you're willing to put into it and how much you're willing to um, fly out and check out the horse and do your due diligence. It's just more time and more money and more effort. That's my opinion anyway. How tall is Fame? He is 16'2". So he's a big guy, but he's not the biggest that they come. Is it Orochimaru chick? Not sure if I'm saying that right. Love your voice in your videos. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Quick question. Will you be filming a video or more where you ride Fame on a trail without music? Would love to hear your communication with Fame. Yes, thank you. So I put out that video. I don't know if you guys saw where I was just trail riding, and I never imagined in my life that anyone would want to hear me talking. And that was a number of the comments. So thank you very much. And yes, I'm Gonna definitely be doing that. Maybe when we go camping here soon, I'll get a chance to do that, and I can talk about what's happening, what I'm feeling, and kind of how I'm reacting to it. So thank you for that input. James, I have a funny and weird little question. Am I ticklish? Yeah, that is a weird question. Yes, yes. Um, my husband likes to jab me in the ribs. I don't know what it is with you guys. You think it's funny. Allie Garman, how are you able to find a Western saddle that fits a draft horse? I couldn't find any. Oh, Allie, I'm sorry. Yes, I feel your pain. So you're not gonna like me because I'm pretty fortunate. Fame actually has a fairly standard wither and back, and so I'm able to put him in a wide Western tree, full quarter horse bars. So the saddle that I purchased from horsesaddleshop.com. Not endorsed by them, but I had a great experience with them, and the reason why I ended up choosing them was, A, because there weren't really any local tack shops where I could try things out, and B, the return policy is such that as long as the saddle is still in saleable condition, you can send it back, and I thought, "Great," because not everyone offers that, and fortunately, the saddle that I chose ended up fitting. Just a note, we picked a rough out saddle, and wish I had worn something other than jeans because just sitting in it once, the blue transferred. So if you're trying out a saddle and you need to return it and it's a rough out, be mindful of that. Put something down. But luckily it worked out for us. So we kept it. Tara, what is my day job? How do I fund it? Yeah. I work in fundraising, and so I'm fortunate that I'm working with a lot of different time zones, and so I work flexible odd hours, and so it gives me a chance to go out and ride during the day. Andy, same issue with my little brother that I have with your husband. My husband like college football weighs 275 to 300. Yeah, right. And they're fit guys, but they're big guys. And not everyone understands that because there's a big difference between someone who's fit and balanced and not at different weights and how they carry themselves. And so, yeah, it's challenging. I'm trying to think of who the guy is. There's a bodybuilder, and I can't think of who he is that rides a horse. And I think he's got either a Frisian or a draft cross. I'll have to ask my husband if he remembers who he is. It is really interesting seeing someone that large and muscular on an equally large and muscular horse. It's like, wow. But yeah, it's a tough find. I feel that. Jocelyn. Hi, Stephanie. Hello. Hi, Jocelyn. Um, Stacia, when looking for a drum, is there any medical issues that we should be aware of? I reached out to the woman who's in charge of education for the IDHA, which is the International Drum Horse Association. And if you are interested in drums, definitely check out their website. They are, I would say, the most prominent association for registering drum horses. And um, she was like, you know what? There aren't really that many, except maybe mites in the feathers, which I was talking to someone on Instagram, and she's actually in the Netherlands, I believe, and she was saying they really have an issue with it over there. She thinks it has to do with the climate, maybe. I don't know if that's climate or if that's the line of drafts that are common in that area. It's hard for me to know. I am not a vet. That would be a great question for a vet. But in my experience, my limited experience, there don't seem to be a lot. And drum horses in the US are relatively new. Um, I want to say, only a couple of decades that they've really been bred and more focused with the registry and all that kind of stuff. So the data is still maybe not as extensive as you would find for Shires or Clydesdales, but I don't think they have quite the same amount as maybe some breeds that have been around for longer. I definitely encourage folks, if you're interested in a specialized breed, I have found that Facebook groups to be immensely helpful. And I'm on a few Facebook groups for drum horses in particular. And it's really interesting to just hear people's different questions and perspectives, and you can learn a lot that way. And if you're shopping for a special breed too, that can be another great way to get connected with folks that, maybe, some horses don't get listed on some of your major shopping sites like Dream Horse or Equine Now. drafts for sale. Like, those are some of the big sites. Sometimes people are kinda like, "Yeah, maybe I'll sell him, maybe I won't. Maybe I'm, looking for the right home." They don't wanna deal with the whole marketing a horse thing. So that can be another great way to find a horse of a certain breed. Ah, cool, I read it right. I took Japanese for a year in high school, so I'm a little familiar with the katakana and the hiragana. I'm assuming that's Japanese. Not ticklish at all, sensitive skin, yes. Me too. You're welcome, Allie. A list. We have a very wet comment here, so we tend to have a really big problem with horses who have feathery legs. Okay, so yeah, and you were in the Netherlands too, right? Um, so yeah, maybe there's something with the moisture that really those guys proliferate. But that is one thing that I would say I've heard more commonly with drum horses. And then with the feathered drafts in general, I have heard of is it CPL, CLP, chronic lymphedema, something like that, where their legs get really, inflamed and swollen. I don't know how common that is, but I have seen, horses on Instagram that deal with that, and it looks yucky. Andy, for Western saddles that will fit drafts, you can get the guy who builds my saddles to build one. Yeah. If you can, afford a custom saddle and get that taken care of, that's amazing. Saddle fitters, all that stuff is super helpful, and then you don't have to worry. May my daughter and I are just starting the process of looking. Congratulations, that's exciting. I love horse shopping. I wish I could just keep buying horses because the process is so fun. It has been hard to find any with a price tag not similar to BMW. I'm sorry, yes, I know, and I don't know what kind of breed you're looking at, but I was shocked when I first got into horses. So my very first horse was very inexpensive, and I got him off of Craigslist because I was just like, "I'm coming home with a horse. I'm gonna get a horse." Not how I recommend doing it, by the way, but that's what I ended up doing. And then as I started to learn more, yeah, I mean, I was watching one of these elite, horse auctions on YouTube. They were doing a live stream, and man, the bidding for some of these horses goes into the six figures, and it's incredible. I mean, when you look at what these horses can do, you start to understand, okay, that's why these horses cost so much, but it is quite incredible how much certain horses can cost, and especially if you're looking to get into high levels of a sport, and if you get more particular about age and breed, that's when the price very often goes higher and higher. So, yeah, I hope you guys are able to find something that is healthy for your budget and your daughter. Frisian born and raised. Okay, I think you had sent me a comment and, you're in Friesland, right? Just northeast of Amsterdam, which I have been to, and that place is amazing. Tara Lorraine, that's a great question about the health of drafts. Live in subtropical regions, so hot and humid. Yeah, that is something to keep in mind. And I don't know if you're able to reach out to other people in your area. If you're looking to get a particular type of horse or do a particular type of sport, one of my videos, I think it was the cheapest way to own a horse video. One of the recommendations I make is to start building your network now. Especially, I started off in horses. I didn't know anybody. I was very isolated. And now having been in it for over a decade and made some friends and built some connections, there's so much value in having a network that you can rely on, people that you can call or ask, "Hey, what's your experience?" Whether that's, if you're taking lessons at a boarding facility, you can get to know people that way. Local horsemen's associations, riding clubs. Even if you don't have a horse yet, don't feel like you can't, show up at a meeting. Of course, with COVID, I don't know how that's working for everybody, but, start reaching out and connecting with people as best as you can. Get creative because, uh, it can be a really wonderful resource to get to know other people, and you learn things that you wouldn't know otherwise. So you can find out, "Oh, the trails in my area, you really have to worry about rattlesnakes," or, yeah, all the draft owners in our particular area because of the climate maybe struggle with mites. I don't know, but this is the type of stuff that you don't know until you know people. Uh, Frisk. Okay, good to know. Bonnie, what's the biggest problem you've encountered with fame? Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I would say the stuff that we're working on now connects to kind of who he is as a horse. He's a really sensitive guy. It's funny because drafts often have the reputation for being dull, right? And I was watching a Warwick Schiller video actually about this, and he was working with a draft. And his philosophy was that he actually thinks a lot of the horses that are relegated as being dull actually start off quite sensitive. And the only way that they learn how to survive emotionally in their environment is to kind of shut down. And he works with a lot of shutdown horses. So he's got an interesting take on it. Um, but I've found that Fame is very sensitive, not just uh, to my like leg aids and that kind of stuff, but just emotionally, he seems like kind of a sensitive guy. And so we've always had to really work on relaxation, um, and just, getting him to a place where he's not containing any kind of pent up anxiety because he's the type of guy that is more introverted, more would tend to be more stoic. So even if he was stressed out, his first impulse isn't so much to just go blah and take off and run, although that could happen. um, he will kind of keep it inside and keep it inside and keep it inside. And I do think, he developed an ulcer last year, and I wonder if there was, stress related to that because we were in the throes of doing a lot. The training, going on trail, there was a lot of new happening. So I would say, just working on understanding how to help him relax and they get amped up and bringing them back down and they get nervous about something and then helping them come back down so they're not building up, this intensity of stress. So that I would say is the thing that we have worked on the most and continue to work on the most. Um, and then I would say second to that is I've fallen off of him twice and had 2 concussions and gone to the hospital, and it was a big ordeal. Some people fall off and they're a little bruised, but that's kind of the extent of it. I've fallen off twice, and both times they were, like, horrible traumatic experiences. So for me, it's been working on my anxiety too, and I'm sure he picks up on that, and so it becomes, this self-feeding cycle with horses because they're such mirrors to us, and so we've that's something that I personally have done a lot of work on. Steven, how do you keep Fame's feathers so white? I wish I had like a magic product to recommend you, Steven, because I get this question on Instagram all the time. And I don't really do a whole lot. I do use a product called Easall or Easy All horse wash. And it's a foaming applicator spray stuff. And I have a video about it on my channel you can watch. I use that, and I occasionally might use some of the Quicksilver shampoo, but really, honestly, for us, the difference has been keeping him in a situation where it's not super muddy, because the first boarding facility we were at, he had lots of pasture and there was lots of mud, and so he would, get caked and disgusting, and there was really no point in washing him because he'd just roll and get dirty again. But the place we're in now, I think he stays a lot whiter just simply because he doesn't get access to all the mud like he used to. Any comments on a mini as a companion? Oh, I love minis. I honestly I'm not qualified to answer that because I don't have any mini experience. I have seen people keep minis. I went horse camping with a lady in November who brought along her mini. And so I've seen it done, but I couldn't tell you what to be mindful of or what to look out for. Uh Andy, for your listeners who are wanting to get horses soon, the Salmon Select sale is coming up beginning of the month. Horses have to compete for 2 days prior to the sale so buyers can watch them. Interesting. Okay, I've never heard of the Salmon Select sale. Why is it called Salmon Select? Just out of curiosity. Is it because they're in a salmon fishing region or something? The auction that I did watch was Premier Horse Sales, I think is the website. They've got a YouTube and they've got an Instagram, and there's one coming up in Reno, I think in June. that I thought would be fun to go check out, and then I think they do them in Dallas, and, similar idea. So these elite horse auctions, they have sellers submit their horses a couple months prior, and then they do an extensive vetting process. So I was really fascinated by this, and they go through and they vet the horses from a training perspective and from a health perspective. They do X-rays, they do all kinds of stuff. So by the time you get to the auction, the horse has been thoroughly vetted. And then they've got I think 1 or 2 day prior where the horses demonstrate, if it's a cow horse, they bring cows and they cut cows. And if it's a reining horse, they show the reining skills the horse has. And then the actual auction is a very limited time where the horse comes up. And by that point, the buyers have supposedly already seen the horse, asked the questions, contacted the sellers in advance, maybe gone and ridden the horse, whatever. Um, and I have not seen a horse go for less than, I want to say, 15 or $18,000 on one of those auctions. So I don't know if the salmon one is similar to that, but that's good to know. Thank you. Trail competitions, work cattle performance. Yeah, sounds very similar. It's really fascinating to watch. And this is another thing too. Even if your budget is not, you know, 15, 20, $30,000, I personally love to watch these things because it gives me an idea of what horses are capable of, what kind of skills, are nice to have, or just how people work with horses. And so then when I would go shopping for my own horse, even if I don't have that kind of budget, I get an idea of why certain skills are important and valued, and it's just really fascinating. Alyssa, we have our own language up here, quite an old one. Yeah, Europe, you guys are so fascinating. You've got so many amazing pockets of culture, and I can't wait for the world to kind of open up again to be able to go back. Alyssa, I personally like sensitive horses because I can kind of relate when you get them to trust and focus on you. Yeah. Yeah, I think, there's a lot to be said for that. I think it's definitely more work for the owner, but it is a nice feeling when they connect that way. Rebecca, do you follow or have you any recommendations for other horse-related channels? Love your style. Thank you. Haven't found many others for the everyday horse owner. That is a good question. This is kind of why I wanted to do the YouTube channel, was because the channels that I saw out there, I didn't really feel like I could connect to a lot of them. It seems like there's a lot of, people who are professional trainers, and so they're doing, how to teach your horse to side pass or how to deal with trailer loading issues, and I'm not a trainer, so none of that stuff is stuff that I'm qualified to talk about. I can just, I just try to share my experience with you guys and my opinion, but I am, not a horse professional in any capacity. So, please know that, and just take it with a grain of salt. This is just my opinion on things from my experience. But yeah, or the other channels I saw were, people who are super advanced, and they're going to these, 3-day eventing competitions, and they're high level this and that. And one of the things that I have always struggled with being in horses is feeling intimidated and feeling inadequate, because there's so much to learn with horses. There are so many talented, experienced people in horses. And I find too that the more I'm around other horse people, it seems like a lot of folks that are still in horses have been in horses for a long time, or they have extensive experience from childhood and then they kind of revisited it later in life. And that was never my story. I took some lessons for a little bit when I was 13, but there was no way my parents were gonna buy me a horse, and so it was something that I had to make happen, when I became an adult. And yeah, the learning curve is tremendous, but I definitely think it's doable. And I do feel very passionately about wanting to, keep the conversation open and accessible. And, I see a lot of people be discouraging to beginners and new horse owners. And I get it. A lot of times people are coming from backgrounds of having rescued, horses that were neglected or watched people get themselves hurt. So, you definitely want to be careful and do your research. But I'd love to see everybody be able to enjoy horses that wants to enjoy horses. They have so much to offer, and they really do change us in great ways. So yeah, I if I find some good channels, I will let you know. A lot of the stuff I watch on YouTube, some of it's horse related and then some of it's just like techie, nerdy camera stuff. Tara, do you use any complementary therapies for fame? That's a great question. Massage, bone therapy, acupuncture. At this point, I don't. There's a woman who she does do acupuncture, and I've been thinking about having her work on fame at some point this year. There's, I think it's called the Masterson method, and I don't know if that's just limited to California or the US, but I've heard of people saying they've had great experience with that. Um, so yeah, if you have one that you really like that you'd recommend I check out, let me know. Wild Explorer. How much do you like horses? I like horses so much that it's pretty much taking up all of my free time. As much as I can get out there, that's how much I like them. Tara, how did you get into horses? I this is gonna sound like a very bougie story, but I was in Europe for a work trip, and when my meetings were done, I wanted to take some time to explore. And one of the places that I hit was Vienna, Austria, and I had the tremendous pleasure of seeing the Lipizzaner stallions at the Spanish riding school. And literally from the moment I walked into the performance hall, because it smells like horse, and I hadn't been on a horse in probably 10 or 15 years. I was like, I need a horse. It was like one of those, like a flip switched. And I watched the performance and was just amazed and was like, when I get home, I need to figure out a way to have a horse in my life. And I got home and researched like crazy and found a horse on Craigslist that was a good fit for me. He was a beginner's horse in his late teens, I think. Who knows? He might have been older than that. And he was my first horse teacher and trail partner, and he was amazing. And for as much as I didn't know and was taking a huge risk, I do feel like I made a good choice in picking a horse that was safe. Um, he taught me a lot, and I did a lot of stupid things that I didn't know were stupid, but because he was such a good boy, I was safe. It was okay, and we went out trail riding, and I was hooked. So that was kind of the beginning of it for me. Sort of an impulsive, aggressive, like, "I'm gonna do this" thing. It's in Salmon, Idaho. Okay, that's why it's called Salmon Select. Interesting. Okay, thank you, Andy. May, is Fame a full gypsy vanner? No, so he's actually what's called a drum horse, and a lot of people are like, "What the heck is that?" They are a relatively new breed in the US, and they are created by breeding gypsy vanners with Clydesdales and/or Shires. And Fame happens to be about a third Gypsy Vanner and two-thirds Shire. So his mare was Shire and his sire was a drum. And I think the Gypsy goes back to probably his grandfather. So that's his lineage. The Lunita, have you ever met and done a meet and greet? You're in Norco. Hey, awesome. I did a video. I was just in Norco. I could not believe your town, the sidewalks. You could ride your horse. It's the coolest thing in the whole world. Yes. Your horse likes to stop and eat weeds, so he wouldn't be able to keep up with Fame. You know what? Right now, it's spring, and I find that all Fame cares about is grass. It's like I don't even exist. I don't know if those of you who have horses go through this, but yeah, it's like their brain is just, yep, grass. That's all I want. Um, I would love to do a meet and greet at some point. That would be super fun. I don't know how many of you guys are in the Bay Area, but that's where we are. So it would be super fun to meet you guys in person. Yes, thanks, Liz. Drum horses are created. Yeah, and you can have Gypsy and Shire, Gypsy and Clyde, or you can have a Gypsy Clyde Shire. And it just has to do with percentages. And so there's F1, F2, F3. If you guys took genetics in high school, has to do with the generations and just what percentage of Gypsy there is. And yeah, and it's a different standard than in Europe. I had someone very upset message me on Instagram that the standards are different in Europe, that they have a different stud book and all that kind of stuff. So if for those of you that are in Europe, The drum horse standard might be different from what is in the United States, but in the United States, FAME is IDHA registered, the International Drum Horse Association, and that's just kind of the description that I follow. Bonnie, okay, so you had some great recommendations. Yeah, Tara, I've had some other folks in the comments mention Tara, Pat and Deb Puckett, yes, which I love because my grandparents' last name is Puckett. Very hardcore Southern name. Harmony Horsemanship, Stephanie Morato, yeah. Yeah, she's fun. She's got a lot of pets. And then I think, like, there's this Esme, she's more of in the English world. Um, Matt Harnack or Harnacki, I don't know how you say his name. He's a model that does dressage, I believe, and he also does these really high-end stable tours. So if you like to watch that kind of stuff, it's amazing some of these stables. He goes throughout Europe, I think mostly, and just incredible. May, some folks down here in Texas are calling drums a mixture of Vanners and something else. Okay, yeah. So I was curious. I've seen others call Vanners drums even though they're a full gypsy Vanner. Yeah, so um yeah, gypsy Vanners are their own thing and they have their own registries. There's like the gypsy cob and something. I'm totally gonna butcher this. Sorry, gypsy folks, but I know there's other gypsy registries and sometimes they will have classes for drum horses. But the IDHA in the US, I think, is probably your number one registry for drum horses, and that's you can go on their website, and they go into great detail about the percentages and what constitutes a drum. Tara, hello, I recently found your channel, and I really like it. Thank you, welcome. You've helped me a lot as I prepare to buy my first horse for trail riding. Congrats. I am super happy for you, and I'm glad the channel's been helpful. Yeah, I really just try to create the content that I wish that I had had access to when I got started because as I mentioned, I kinda just winged it on my own and learned through trial and error and suffered a couple of concussions as a result, which I would never want anyone else to go through. But yeah, I like being able to help people get started with this because it really has been life-changing for me. I feel like horses and trail riding is just where my, like, soul sings, and it is this amazing connection to nature and God and life, and it helps me, you know, disconnect from this thing. I think we're all in a place now where we realize we're maybe busier and distracted than we want to be, and so horses and trail riding for me has just been the way to feel more human. Love it. Wild explorer. I do not have a horse, but now I want one. I live in Greece. Oh, very cool, Greece. Yeah, they're amazing. Any experience that you can get with horses. I know the goal for a lot of us is to have our own horse. But I would say, if right now your time or your schedule or your budget really only allows for you to take some lessons or to just go on some occasional public trail rides, do that because it all helps build your skills and it will all help you down the line to when you eventually do, if you do eventually get your own horse, it all helps. So don't feel like it's got to be that or nothing at all. Because even if you're taking lessons from different people, maybe you find an instructor and you're kind of like, oh, okay, that was great for a few weeks, and now I don't really feel like I'm getting a lot out of it, so I'm gonna try something else. Try different types of writing, English, Western, whatever you can get access to. I'm gonna close this window real second. Sorry, doing some construction outside. Tara, is your husband into riding with you at all? Can you share a little bit about how he feels about it? I'm an adult and married, and I turned a corner and was just like, I want a horse. I was just hesitant. Yeah. Um, I guess, in my situation, I already had fame when I met my husband. So he knew that, the horse part thing was a part of my life. He's actually really supportive of it. I think, he finds them fascinating. He loves fame. But it's definitely my thing. And I think what he has realized is that I am a much better person to live with and to be married to when I have a horse in my life and when I'm riding. And he definitely notices that I'm just not in the best headspace when I don't get that. And so, I would hope for you that as you get more connected to pursuing this horse thing, taking lessons and that kind of stuff, that your husband will see, how much it lights you up and how much joy you get out of it and the kind of person you become. I really do believe that horses help us become better people if we let them. There's a lot to learn, but I find it just brings out a different part of me. I become a braver person. I become a person who cares less about what other people think. I become, a lot of things that I want to be better at seem to come out for me when I'm around horses. And I would say if that happens for you as well, then, hopefully your husband sees that and he appreciates that and recognizes that you with horses is a good thing. It's better to be married to you with horses than not. Um, but, I mean, I don't know what your husband's like, if he's the type of person that wants to know how much it's gonna cost and he's a planner, in which case, having conversations. I find that when I have conversations with my husband about this kind of stuff and I go, "Okay, this is what I'm thinking. These are my plans." That helps him feel safer in the sense that I'm not just gonna run off and do something crazy without talking to him first. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about marriage, right? Is that you're both growing and changing, and part of the challenge is how to support each other through that process. Have you ever considered having horses on your own property? I would love to. And my husband and I have had many conversations about getting property at some point. The problem is we live in an area where property is insanely expensive. Your average house here is $1,000,000. And I think for a family of 4, I read a statistic that, like, the low income is something like $125,000 a year. It's insane here. So we've had conversations about moving out of state or moving to different parts of California. So that's definitely a dream of us for us that we eventually would love to have happen. Tara, I wanna start my own equestrian channel, but I'm not sure where to start. Ah, exciting. I would say start with, I wrote down some ideas for my channel of some topics that I really felt passionate about. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. If you start getting into some of the YouTube help stuff, there's always the focus on the algorithm and the data. And I would just start with like what you like making videos about and just practice, with your phone, getting comfortable talking on camera, talking about something. And a lot of it just evolved for me from there. But I do keep a list now at this point of videos that I want to make, videos that you guys request, which is super exciting for me. I love to be able to help out that way. Whatever area it is that you feel like you're comfortable with that well. And for me, that was trail riding. I felt like, oh, I could help somebody with this stuff. I know a little bit enough about it now that I feel like I could help somebody else. Jocelyn, I don't know if you already covered this, but how do you train a horse for the trail? Yeah, great question. So I did talk about it earlier in the live stream. Um, I'm not a trainer, so I can't really like give training advice, but I did talk about our journey, and basically it started with him getting trained by a professional on property, us moving to working or to riding with groups, and then hiking with my husband solo, and then going out by myself. And I'll post the live stream so that you can go back and watch it. But that was basically the progression. The property that we're on does have some obstacles and things that are fun. Um, boxes of like water dug in the ground that you can walk through, little bridges, stepping stones, and that kind of stuff is super fun and helpful. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, you learn the trail by being on the trail. And I would also I have also taken Fame out for hikes, where I'm not riding, but we're just walking together, and that's been fun too. Sleepy Whiskey, ride time is so helpful with stress relief. Yes, I definitely agree, especially these days, right? My husband will tell me to go ride because I am grumpy. Yes, your husband sounds a lot like my husband. At some point, he's just like, "You need to go. You need to get out." Tara, do you have any advice on taking a horse with you to college? I'm starting college in August. Congratulations. Need to find a place to board, a trainer, a vet, farrier, etc. Yeah. Um, I mean, I got into horses after college. So I mean, if I was in your situation, I would just be doing my research. I would be figuring out what the facilities are nearby, how close they are, and be thinking about too, like, what's my schedule gonna be like that allows me to, um, see my horse. With my first horse, I kept him in pasture, and I found that that was really helpful because I was not having anxiety during the week if I couldn't get out there to let him out. He had plenty of space to roam around, he had horse friends to hang out with, and that was a huge comfort for me for the busy work weeks that I had. Um, but yeah, research would be the thing to do and maybe ask. I don't know if you board in a facility where other people have managed college and bringing their horse with them, checking in with other people, see what they do, see what works for them. Jocelyn, sorry I was late. No worries. I'm just thrilled you guys are here. This has been amazing, and we're actually getting close to an hour too. So, oh my gosh, this has gone by so fast. You guys are so fun. Thank you so much for being part of this. If you've got any other questions, we've got a few more minutes, and I'd be happy to chat. Andy, responding to you guys getting land, you should move to one of the western states that isn't coastal. Yes. We actually we looked at Utah. We had tried to book a trip to go to Utah, but then, COVID. So, but yeah, there's parts of Utah that are just insanely gorgeous. I know a couple of people who have retired to northern Arizona that are very happy. I have friends that moved to Colorado. They're not horse people, but they moved to Colorado and they're happy there. And I know Idaho has a really great horse population, Montana. Yeah, I mean, so the thing that I kind of I'm trying to see what we can do that maybe doesn't have snow. I love snow, but I want to be able to ride year round, and I don't know if that's going to be feasible, but um yeah, finding something that doesn't get too cold. I'm always admiring of you folks that are in the snow and your trails get icy and you just deal with things that honestly I have never had to deal with. And you get through it okay, and there's ways around stuff, but yeah. Craig, sorry I'm newer. How long have you been around horses? I got my first horse, I wanna say it was 12 years ago now. So I took some lessons as a teen, but really just jumped straight into horse ownership, not knowing anything and making lots of mistakes. Uh, and that was a little over 10 years ago. An hour already. I know. I know. It's been super exciting. Um, well, yeah, if there aren't any more questions, I will just say Northern New Mexico, Digital Python area. Okay, thank you. Friend who makes saddles lives there, loves that. Okay, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I like the whole response to the channel has just been very humbling and thrilling for me. So thank you guys so much. I'm really just super grateful that the content is something that you're enjoying and that you find helpful. So, anytime you've got requests or questions or video ideas or things that you'd like to see, even if it's not connected to the video, I do my best to try and respond to all the comments or at least look at all of them. Sometimes work means that I'm behind a little bit, but I do love to read your guys' comments. So thank you so much. We got one more question. Okay, can you tell one of your concussion stories? Well, yeah, I can tell you both of them, but the first one, and most of them, well, they were both really my own uh, not being so smart. So the first one, Fame, was brand new to me, and I was riding him around in a halter in a dressage saddle with these massive split reins that I had never used before and workout leggings. And like the equipment scenario was just a complete mess. But the thing is I was operating under the naivete that I had acquired from my first horse, which is like, oh, this is just how horses are. And he was such a good boy when I tried him out. And I just didn't really completely understand that a 5-year-old horse is different from a well broke, 18-year-old horse. And so the ride was going well. We were hacking around on the property and we went into a barn and there were some pigeons that had been nesting up inside the barn that in Alfred Hitchcock style just all of a sudden decided that they needed to get the heck out of Dodge. And so they all woof up into our face and Fame very understandably went, "Oh my gosh," and did a 180 and was like, "Get to safety." And I had not cantered in probably a year and a half because my first horse developed arthritis that we treated, but got to the point that, he needed to walk. And so I was out of shape and I bailed and I had a helmet on, whacked my head, blacked out. Ambulance came, they strapped me to the gurney, they took me to the hospital, CT scan, all that fun stuff, x-rays, and I was okay, but I had a pretty bad concussion. Um, so yeah, not smart on my part. Silly questions. What do you think about compromising on your dream horse breed? Yeah, I know you had mentioned this in one of your comments. I think this probably deserves its own video 'cause, there were some people that really didn't like that last point that I made in that 7 mistakes video. And what I said basically was, if you've got a dream horse in mind, it may be that you need to hold off and make that maybe your 2nd or 3rd horse. Um, and, I think there are ways to accelerate your horsemanship skill process, and it depends on how much time and money you can afford to put into it. I don't think everyone has to necessarily compromise it. A lot of it depends on what your dream horse is, right? Um, and I know, when you're looking at unusual breeds, you're dealing with, horses that maybe don't have the training that you're looking for, in which case, I mean, that was the situation that I was in, is I wanted a drum horse. That was what I was gonna get. But all the drum horses had all 3 of them had, like, 30 days of saddle training. And so what in hindsight, what I ought to have done was get him into, the type of training that we got a couple years ago right away. But unfortunately, I just didn't have a trainer at that time that I felt like was a great fit for us. And so there was a long process of me trying different training methods and working with different people. Um, and so that could be, the route that you decide to go. Um, but, I think it's just the thing that I didn't know is I didn't know what I didn't know, And so getting an understanding of what it really means to deal with a 5-year-old, right? Or a horse that is green, and to really get a good sense of where my riding skills were at. There were some big disconnects for me. And I think as much as possible, being able to close those gaps and not have those disconnects, to have a really good sense of, what your skills are, where you need to improve and be working on that. And then also understanding what kind of horse you've really got and where your expectations are so that you know how to be safe and what you need to do to be safe is a big part of it. But yeah, I definitely think that could be its own video. So I will keep that in mind. Okay, we're getting a little over time. So let me get through these last few questions here real quickly as best as I can. Thank you guys so much. This is amazing. Do you think bigger horses are like fame are okay for beginners? I love big horses, but I'm scared and I don't have enough experience to have one as my horse horse. I get that. I honestly, I don't think it's about size personally. I'm more interested in the horse's temperament and the horse's experience and training. There are some amazing gentle giant drafts that, you could climb all over them and fall off of them and they just stand there. So I really think it's about finding the right horse. Um, Size standpoint, I mean, it is a longer fall when they are taller. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's definitely a benefit to having a shorter horse because if you fall, or I should say when you fall, because I think we all eventually fall at some point. But when you fall off, it's a much shorter fall. So, I think you've got to weigh that for yourself of what kind of horse can you find in your area that's really got the temperament and experience that fits you, regardless of size, regardless of breed. Bonnie, thanks for the Q&A. It's been fun and informative. Thank you, Bonnie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm really glad you're able to join. Bridget, great live session. Thank you for coming. Would really love a draft because I love them for many reasons. They are strong. Yeah. Again, comes down to finding the right horse, I think, the right fit. Steven, thanks for all your hard work. Thank you, Steven. I'm really glad you joined me. Glad you guys enjoyed the live stream. Tara, thanks for being here. Amy, my favorite horse is a halflinger. I love halflingers. My friend has a halflinger. We go horse camping with her, and he's the cutest. You have a connective yeah, I mean, I definitely think given your situation, Ellis, maybe talk to, um, I don't know, your doctor, a trainer, get multiple inputs on this. But yeah, I mean, if you are at risk for really injuring yourself, the temperament of your horse is gonna be huge, and logistically, it may make more sense getting on and off of a shorter horse. Um, but yeah, definitely talk to some professionals that know you and know your situation. Amy, I find ponies have more of an attitude, that's just my experience. Yeah, I've heard that too from there's a couple of girls at the ranch that have ponies, but they like it. They're like, "Yeah, I like them spicy." It's kind of a running stereotypical joke. I have never had a pony, so I can't say, but I have heard other people say that too. Jocelyn, thank you. Happy trail. See you in the next video. Andy, glad you could join me for the live stream. Glad you enjoyed it. All right, you guys. I'm gonna go eat some lunch. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I definitely look forward to doing this again. So stay tuned. I'll post another time and update. All right. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye bye.